Hi you guys, my name is Tamika. This is my channel Tamika Michelle, and today I will be talking about the books I read in January 2021. I know, better late than never, right?
Yeah, I know I look good. Yeah, I look fly. Baby, I'm just your type. I'm a baddie.
Let's get started. First up, Working Conjure, a guide to Hoodoo Folklore by Hoodoo Moise. Okay, so this is clearly self-explanatory. It's a book about hoodoo. So what made this book special is, well, one, it's the first book I ever read on hoodoo, and two, I like the fact that it gave you straightforward history on hoodoo. I had no idea that this was something that was actually essentially created right here in America during the time of slavery. It wasn't overly detailed, but a good enough generalization so that I could wrap my mind around what exactly hoodoo is and where does it come from and why do they practice it. I also thought it was very interesting to find out that hoodoo is not an actual religion. You know, there are people of various different religions that practice hoodoo. So there are Christian people who practice hoodoo. So I thought that was very interesting to find out that hoodoo is very much a practice or almost profession in itself, as opposed to it is a religion. So I think a lot of people probably know that. I didn't know that, so I found that to be very fascinating. I like that the author broke a lot of misconceptions that even I may have had or anyone else that may have about hoodoo, as well as it was just very interesting hearing about what the practice is, the different things they do in their practice and why they do them. So I thought it was a very interesting book to read, especially if you're a person who just likes to learn about these things. This is a great start. This next book is called Honeybees by Jennifer McMahon. This is a short story in that series I was telling you about from Amazon. It's like that creepy, scary series. Honeybees is your straight up Tales from the Crypt story about a girl who is depressed and sad every time Halloween comes around and is reflecting on a horrible thing that she was a part of and did to another person that led to this great folklore in her neighborhood. This book's crazy. Like, the story's wild. I love it, even if it's the protagonist, when a bully gets what's coming to them. So if you like a really good, they got what's coming to them story, Honeybees is it. Revenge is a dish best served cold. This next book is The Sleep Tight Motel by Lisa Unger. And this essentially tells the story of a woman on the run, not only from her abuser, but from the police. She has done something horrible in order to get away, and she ends up at a motel in order to get a little rest before she can hit the road again, only for us as the viewer essentially recounting everything that led to the situation, as well as the attendant of the sleep motel and why they are so odd and mysterious. And as we come ahead, as the person, her abuser, is getting closer and closer and closer to her, we learn more about this character, which only leads to an ending that is both unfortunate yet peaceful. I found this to be a 3 out of 5 stars for me, only because I don't want to reread it. I really like 4 and 5 stars is put it on my shelf. Let's reread it. Kind of feels for it. A 3 is I can respect how it was written. Thought it was well written. Thought it was well put together. However, it aired a little bit on the boring side. Not enough action for me. Not enough blood and gore, which is what I was really signing up for when I read this series. But on top of that, the emotion just left me low. It kind of brought my spirit down just a little bit. So I can say that if you like something well written and you like these more mystery thriller types of books, as a short story, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're someone who roots for the underdog, this book may not be for you. This next book, 5 out of 5 stars easily. There is a giant trapdoor spider under your bed by Edgar Quintero. So this was charming, like Peter Pan charming. Like, okay, so when you were little, did you ever play that game, The Floor is Lava, where you and your friends are like on the couch and stuff like that, and you don't want to touch the floor because it's made of lava? If you played those games, if those mean something to you, I highly recommend this book. It was so cute, so much fun, and strikingly adorable. It actually scared me at times. I was like, I didn't think it could, because it had like kind of like that goosebumps, are you afraid to the dark feel, without being overwhelming. I would share this story with a child. So, but I would also share it with an adult. Like, I think it has something for both. Well, I highly recommend There's a Giant Trapdoor Spider Under Your Bed. I mean, there is. You should look. Next up, Alexis Henderson's The Year of the Witching. Now, this was actually low on one of the books I wanted to read. I just so happened to check it out at the library. I got it. I was like, let's give it a go. And I really was upset with the fact that this book won its category in Goodreads. And so I was like, well, let me read it. And to be fair, I still kind of hold on to that feeling. I thought it was well written. I thought it was a good book. I see why it won. But I don't know how many of you actually enjoyed that book as much as you did. Like, it's a little bit on the boring side. But to be fair, once you get to the second half of that book and you get to all the body horror, the gore, the grossness, the plagues, like, then you're like, oh, this is interesting. And that fight scene at the end, that is something that all people should behold. So I actually would recommend checking this book out. Will I buy this book? No. Will I reread this book? Probably not. If it's a movie, would I watch it? Definitely. Now this next book, Now this next book was actually one of the books that I got in one of my Once Upon a Book Time boxes, and that is The Ravings by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. I read this, buddy read it with my homegirl, Isis. She had feels for that. Real human emotions about how she felt about this book, which for me, I didn't hate as much as she hated it. But it's not the greatest book ever written. I'm not gonna sit here and say, yo, spin the coin. I'm not gonna tell you, but if you can get it from the library for free, it's fall, why not? Also, if you're a scaredy cat, I think this would be good for you too. I didn't think it was that scary. But with that said, if you didn't know, this tells a story of a girl who ends up going to a college, and she thinks that her mother is a charlatan fortune teller, and she ends up joining a sorority of witches, finding out that she herself has witch powers herself. On the flip side, there is a sister there who already dislikes her for whatever reason. You found out early, but I won't ruin that. But she plans on becoming president, but in the midst of all that, she ends up dealing with something horrible that she did in the past that kind of bites them in the butt, but not really. Let's talk about it a little bit more. So with The Ravens, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. The first half of the book is very boring. What I was expecting from this book is to be really about these girls wanting to join. As someone who's actually pledged herself, I was like, oh, we're gonna get a whole bunch of like initiation things that we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, what will witches do with Hell Week? Like, Hell Week was trash. It was so boring. They didn't even do anything bad. I did worser things. Online. These girls did nothing. I thought to myself, Danielle and Cass must have not pledged. Or they wouldn't have pledged one of those sororities where all you had to do was sign your name on a piece of paper and you got in. Because when I pledged, there was literal blood, sweat, and tears. I remember ambulances. Like, that's what I remember when you used to pledge back in the day. Okay, but this book, and this got witches, it was too boring. It was so melodrama. It was like watching the reboot of Charmed. Like, it was just dry and crusty. Like, you had all this material to make something amazing, and it was blasé. That's the first half of the book. But let me tell you, once you get to the second half of the book, after someone disappears and dies, the book picks up. But it's like, dang. Then it becomes National Treasure, which is kind of cool. And you're like, what? How does it go from a sorority witches to National Treasure to essentially 9 Little Indians? Maybe? I don't know how to explain it, but what I will tell you is that this book was a mixed bag of a whole lot of something that added up to a little bit of nothing. And in the end, I really enjoyed it. But when I reflect back on, was it worth the journey? The answer is no, it really wasn't worth the journey. I didn't hate it. I wouldn't say that you shouldn't read it. And I know that I'm kind of straddling the fence because that second half of the book is so much fun, but you gotta go in knowing that this book is low-key kind of boring. You don't know who the characters are. They're trying to do diversity, but diversity is weird. You can't tell really who's what. And to the book, it seems like it's important to the book for you to know, but you can't tell. It's not written well. It's not written well for character development. Character development is trash. So if you don't care about character development, you don't care too much about magic systems, go in it for the murder mystery part. This next one is called Mild Dow by Joyce Carol Oates. This is another one of those Amazon books, short stories, and this essentially tells the story of a girl who's coming to age with herself, her body. Her mother just left her husband, and now she's in a new relationship with this man who seems extremely suspicious. She ends up living near like a forest of cats, feral cats, and actually ends up adopting one into her family. But because the cat is feral, he kind of comes and goes as he pleases. And it's the cutest relationship between her and her cat. But on top of that, the cat's reflective energy of her situation. This book has probably triggers for sexual harassment of a minor, child trauma is probably the biggest things I would say in this book. A little bit of abuse here, verbal abuse. So this book was a downer, to say the least. It was a little bit sad. It didn't give me horror as much as like real horror. Like this is something somebody probably has really went through in their life. And so to me, I didn't enjoy it. When I was getting into this series, the idea was to do this crazy kind of fantasy out of this, maybe even supernatural. And this book does have supernatural in it, but it's really mostly a coming of age story. And as she's coming to her own, she's also having to fight off the offenses of her stepdad. And that, to me, that's not a good time. So I did not rate this high, only because I didn't enjoy the story. And I would tell you to probably pass on this one. It has a wonderful ending, but it's honestly not a good time. So this next one was my BTS RM's top books that he's been reading recommendation list, and that is Metamorphosis by Kafka. I didn't remember what this was about, and then when I started getting into it and reading it, man, why was this recommended? I wanna know right now, why were we first forced to read this back in school? So Metamorphosis, if you do not know, was not forced to read this as well in middle school. It tells the story of a man who just wakes up and he is turned into an insect, a giant insect, and his whole body hurts. And I'm just like, what is this? He has this hard shell and you're telling me his entire body hurts all the time? And then like the family finds out and there's a maid and they're embarrassed of him. And it's just kind of gross, and it's... What was this book about? Why was it written? And I don't get it. I don't get it. I think maybe I'll read some summaries to give me like some deeper reflections as to what I read. But should you read this? No, pass. You're good. There's so much out there to read that you'll probably get the exact same lesson. So hard pass. Did not enjoy it. It was too weird. But there was, get this, an opera dance they actually looked good. That I do. Go for the opera dance. That's what you want. So the next book was also back in the Amazon collection, and that was Tangled Wood by Emily Raboteau. I'm not quite certain how to pronounce the name. Okay, so this tells the story of a man who pretty much hates his life, and he feels like the only thing that he has going for him is that he's a black man and something horrible is going to happen to him because he's a black man in America. And so he just keeps setting himself up for some racist stuff to go down. And then when it doesn't, he's disappointed. And I don't know what the author was trying to say. I was like, so you're saying that as black people, we want racist things to happen? Or are you, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. And he was awful. The main character was awful. He's cheating on his wife. I mean, I don't care if I ruin this for you because I don't want you to read it. He was cheating on his wife. And so the girl was calling all the time. The wife was like, why are you calling? And she was like, well, something must have happened at work. Really? For her to call that many times your life's not that serious. As well as you're just a professor, what horrible thing could be happening? And come to find out she was saying, yeah, I'm pregnant, but just so you know, my body, my choice, I'm getting an abortion. And I'm just like, what is this author trying to say? I just didn't get it. I feel like he got off too clean. I mean, he just kept talking about how he really doesn't love his wife anymore. He's just kind of there. He doesn't really like his son that much because his son has autism, and he kind of gets on his nerves. But then I guess he loves his son in the end, which was weird. And he tries to get in a fight with this white guy, and this white guy's like, I am so sorry. I was having a really horrible day. Like, this white guy was tripping. And, you know, my wife, she was egging me on and stuff, trying to say I'm not enough of a man. I apologize. Can I get you a drink or a beer or something, like, you know, to like make up for, you know, the ill will I had towards you? Because I think they had like a verbal conflict, and he was like, no. And then he was like, fuck you. And then like he's saying all these horrible things, and to finally get the guy revved up, and he finally punches him. He's like, yeah. And I'm just like, what is this? A woman wrote this, and I'm like, is this your idea of what men are? Is this supposed to be about toxic masculinity? What is this book about? Why does it exist? The horror is that this book was published. Of all the stories that they could have added to this collection, I'm sure that there was others. They said that, yeah, this is good. Let's add this. And the Tangled Woods was trash. It was trash, and I didn't get it. I thought it was just the oddest thing I've ever read, and I was just like, it should have remained on Wattpad where it belonged. So this next book is The Remedy, which was absolutely interesting. This one was very much a Black Mirror episode. For a short story, Black Mirror, a little bit Twilight Zone, maybe a little Outer Limits. It tells the story of a guy who's been in constant pain his entire life. He's went to doctor, and nothing has relieved him of this pain that he has in his body. Apparently, he's known other people who suffer from this too, and he had a friend who's like, I know someone who can relieve us of this. And it's like new work, new science, or whatever. And so he goes in, he has a conversation with this woman. She's so pleasant. She's so nice. And it's like every time he talks with her, he feels almost like a little bit better. And there's little things that he does. And he was like, this is it. This has got to be what needs to happen. This person's doing something that no other doctor does. And that is getting to know me, who I am, maybe the root cause. And the ending is shocking, because I didn't see the ending coming. And then on top of that, the protagonist's reaction to this was, well then. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. This is not gonna be everybody's, thing, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of like hospital horror stories or psychological thrillers that have to do with like mental institutions and things like that. So it was a little bit more up my alley, and I did enjoy it, but you may find it to be appalling. I don't know. But other people may have more issues with the story than I did. But I did want to tell you that I enjoyed it. I do recommend giving it a try. I mean, it's a short story. How bad could it be? This next one, another short story, Agents of Dreamland. I forget why. I know why I picked it up. I know why I picked it up. I did not like it. It was very convoluted. It didn't make any sense. It was going in and out of time, and you really couldn't catch up with it. You had no time to connect with any of the characters. And by the time you figured out what the story was about, the story was over. And to believe that it's like the first one in the collection, I will not be going further on. I will forget this book ever existed. I can hardly even tell you what it's about, other than there is a horrible thing that happens, and that there are these time police. They're supposed to go in and figure out what happened in the case in order to go in and fix it. And then there's a woman who's actually a part of the calamity, and I hated it. Don't waste your time. Move on. You'll like something else. If you did read it, let me know what your thoughts were on it, but I can't recommend it. I can't. This next one, the last book in this Amazon series I was reading, which was Oak Avenue. Oak Avenue told the story of a woman and her husband, newlyweds. They moved back to his old town, but they move into this very beautiful home. They have a child, and he's always away. So she's always at home, essentially with her child by herself, tending and making sure everything's okay. But she has an old-fashioned town, like women don't have rights, kind of an old-fashioned town. She's telling the gardener, hey, I want you to put this here. Are you sure, ma'am? Maybe you need to talk that over with your husband first. She's like, you gotta be kidding me. So it was a lot of that, like a lot of her trying to talk to people. And then there's one guy who's really, really nice to her, but everyone's saying like, oh, you know, he the town hoe. And then the husband's getting riled up, like, why are you talking to him? He da-da-da-da-da-da. And so it's this whole thing. And then she's hearing things in the house. She's seeing things in the house. Her husband is coming home doing things that he has never done before. And she swears there's something wrong with the house. I don't want to spoil it for you. Oak Avenue, I actually enjoyed it. It was that spookiness that I needed from a story. And I highly recommend that you check that one out. This next book, one book that I actually did not intend to read, but kind of glad I did. Cinderella is Dead by Kaylee Byron. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, but maybe it's more like a 3.5. I thought that the feminism was too on the nose. I'm not gonna lie. I thought the feminism was a little bit too on the nose. But with that said, as the story progressed and the plot thickened, I really enjoyed it. It was really, really a good time. I thought that it was very fascinating how the main character was like, I don't want to be with a prince. I want to be essentially with a princess. And she meets another guy who's like, I don't want to be with a princess. I want to be with a prince. But here is the gems, okay? I really wanted to be about them two trying to be with their two loves, but both of their two loves were tragic. So she ends up in a completely whole different situation, and we follow the main character, which is her. But then the dude, he ends up like in prison somewhere. Like, it was the most. And I was just like, man, that was a missed opportunity of a really cool situation. And I just kept thinking of how they could have made this situation better. In the end, they did the best job, which was bring down the patriarchy. I get it. They did a great job on that. But sometimes it was like, the book was a little preachy to me, just a little bit too preachy for me. I think that a lot of people will enjoy this book. You'll have a good time with this book. It's all about rewriting the Cinderella story and saying that Cinderella did not come to the castle because she was looking for no prince. Cinderella came to the castle to do an assassination. I mean, that's something interesting to say. So I will say that if you're interested in this very nuanced nuanced story on Cinderella, then definitely check it out. For the main story, yeah. But the story, the folklore, the true folklore behind Cinderella that they create in this book is like, now that should have been your book. That sounds good. But anyway, I think you should check out Cinderella's Dead, if anything, just for some of the background story, as well as the second half of the book. First half of the book, that's how I felt about it. The writing's really good. The character development is great. They're pretty much the same people from beginning to the end. Nothing really changes. So if you don't like who they are at the beginning, nobody changes. Actually, some of them get worse. So you got that. Second to last book, another short story. Dang, I read so many short stories. Is Memento, which is the short story to the Illuminae series that I'm always talking about, which is, of course, my favorite series. And this is the moment in book 1, right before Aiden essentially loses his mind as an AI and becomes evil and starts killing everybody. So actually a little bit after, maybe just a little bit after. But yeah, this was a wild ride. It was very interesting getting to listen to Aiden as a baby and what he was like before he was broken and became, a serial killer AI. It was nice to live with him again that way. So I do recommend Memento if you're a fan of the Illuminae series. Man, I'm not gonna lie, it made me want to pick those books back up, and I think I will this year because I really had so much fun with that book. Definitely 5 out of 5 for me. This last book is a Wayward Children series book that I've been telling y'all that I've been wanting to read for a while. Across the Green Grass Fields by Shannon McGuire. This is, of course, another one of those Wayward children's stories. And in this particular one, the child is dealing with a lot of her identity. And I thought it was very interesting, them touching on the subject. It's honestly not the star of the show, but it's in there. I thought it was tastefully done. I don't want to ruin it for you. You can find out for yourself. But it's this child who's coming into her sexuality and wondering why her body isn't doing the things that she thought it should do. And she finds out something about her birth and all that. But being that's not the main part of the story, she ends up actually going into a world filled with her favorite things in the world, horses, but also unicorns and centaurs. And in this world, she is treated awesomely until she finds out that she must be summoned by the queen. And it's not until she learns more about essentially the people there and everything that is happening and how the monarchy has been failing them. And every year it seems like it gets worse and worse. And she learns the story of what happens there. And I don't want to tell you any more about it. I thought it was cute. I thought it was charming. It's not their best story. If you like horses, all right, if you like My Little Pony, all right, this is your book. This is your book. My Little Pony gave me nightmares once. It is that weird, but there's something else with that My Little Pony. Just don't sit right in my spirit. That concludes all the books that I read in January. That was 15 books. I read 15 books. Ooh, 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 ooh. In your face. But yes, I'm so excited to have gotten through that many books. I will try to keep this momentum up. I'm not going to push myself. I'm really excited about the books I'm going to be reading in February. Maybe I'll read more. Maybe I'll read less. Who's to know? But as always, till next time.